Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am Mary Katharine Ham, your host. I am here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. I'm on the road again. I'm out in Dallas, Texas, where I will see almost nothing of the city or anyone who lives here because it is a very short trip. Nonetheless, here I am in a different time zone, having exciting times. There's a lot of news, as usual. The transition proceeds apace, breakneck speed. We're going to get into that. But before we get into that, let's check on Vic. How you doing, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine. I'm doing fine. There's this wonderful, now very cold November morning here. I don't know what it's like in Dallas. It feels like winter has finally arrived.
Been a while. We've had a very, very warm fall.
It's been very mild. So now we're getting a reality checking in here. I love Dallas. So I don't really have anything for myself, but I just want to say I love Dallas. I have, Sonny Bunch lives down there.
It's true.
As you know, my good friend Peter Lowe, who's a lawyer down there, and some of the best people are very friendly. And it's that sort of Southern hospitality, even though Texas is not quite Southern, but they're just nice folks.
Similar vibe, yes.
It is a similar vibe. People are, if you give them enough time, you'll find friendly people in New England, but it just takes a couple years for them to warm up. I'm sorry.
It's true.
I don't know. I think I was in, where was I in recently? Maine, or in Connecticut. There's a certain New England type that's like, they're puritanical in nature. I think.
Yes. Have I ever told you that when I moved to Washington, D.C., I was like, in my low 20s, I had recently graduated from college. I can't believe I've been there that long. And people on the street thought I was like a little special because I would say hi to everyone.
Wow.
And because I would just walk down the street and be like, hey, y'all, how's it going?
No.
And that is not a thing that the Mid-Atlantic does. And I didn't realize that. And looking back, I think, oh my gosh, they must have thought like, who is this country mouse weirdo?
Yeah, you were like Crocodile Dundee when they brought him back to New York and he's going down the street saying hi to everybody.
That was me. Me.
Yes. Neighbors across the street say that when they were, when he was driving down in the South, and when he said it might have been, I think, Mississippi or Arkansas. He was on his way down to Tulane at the time. He says, when you're driving and you pass these other cars on the road, he says other drivers, when you pass them, their hands are on the steering wheel, and then they'll do a little flick with their finger, like
finger wave.
not the middle finger, not the middle finger, like an actual like
friendly, like hello, I know that you're there. Yeah,
that's fascinating. So no, and in New Jersey, the further down it starts to warm up.
The finger wave is very different there. Yes.
Yes, in New Jersey, you are allowed to say to somebody, give them a nod and say, how you doing? But do not actually tell them how you're doing, The response to how you doing is how you doing. So how you doing?
Yeah,
how you doing?
That makes sense.
And that's fine, And then as you get further down south, then it gets to your territory, Mary Katharine. It's like, howdy. But I will say Dallas, if you had more time, Del Frisco's Steakhouse, the Double Eagle is so good. I went to the original many years ago. Now they have a fancy location near, beneath a law firm in downtown Dallas. Bob's Steak and Chop House is another one. Bob's Steak and Chop House. Rick Perry told me that's one of his favorite places.
Okay,
Him
good
and
to know.
Troy Aikman like to go there, and so do I. So three of us.
I'll look out for it.
Yeah,
do you know that I once watched not every single season of Dallas, but 11 of the 14 or something?
You're kidding me.
No, because at the time that's all that was available via physical Netflix. Like
wow.
we would order
you have to get them by mail.
DVDs
of course.
to the house.
Yeah.
And my roommate and I at the time watched 11 seasons of Dallas, and it was fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So what is your opinion, and we can move on briefly, what is your opinion of the season that never was, the dream season?
Like, it's just delightfully insane. I mean, the whole...
You don't think of it, you didn't feel ripped off?
No, I'm not mad at it because it's one of the legendary turns in all of TV history.
Right.
And it's so ridiculous. It's the TV Overton window was just expanded in such an insane way. Plus the scene where she comes in and Bobby's in the shower and she realizes this is iconic. Yes. Iconic.
Yeah, Patrick Duffy. So did you
Pamela
know that
and Bobby, what a love story.
What a love story. And in fact, My friend lives in the same neighborhood where down the street is the childhood home of what's her name? You just mentioned her.
Of Victoria Principal.
Yeah, I believe it's her parents
Mhm.
or it's JR's wife or whoever it was. It's like her childhood home was this
Oh,
home.
Sue
It
Ellen's
was
home.
Sue
Interesting.
Ellen. It was exactly. It was Sue
I
Ellen's home. Yeah.
visited South Fork Ranch on one of my trips
Oh,
to Dallas. I was
that
like, I
one.
must
Yeah.
get there. And so
Yeah. This is the other home. This is the home in the neighborhood, but it's still a
I,
big home. It's a big
I went
mansion.
to South Fork Ranch and I sat by the pool and wanted to place a call on a landline at the pool. Oh, it's good times.
Yes, not
It's
to be
good times.
confused with Falcon Crest or
No.
Dynasty.
I love how if we have any younger listeners, they're just
They have
like,
no idea.
Jennifer right now is like, what are they talking
What are we
about?
talking about? Yes, because the big moment, other than the fake episode, the fake season on Dallas, which the dream season, the big one, obviously, the big thing was the Who Shot Jr.
And
And then,
Who Shot JR has one of the most insane stats of how many
yeah,
people watched
yeah,
the reveal.
that's right.
83 million Americans
And considering
tuned
what the
in.
population of the United States that had TVs at the time, it's astounding. That percentage, it's the percentage that really matters. Dynasty's version of that was the wedding massacre with the terrorists and they were called they were terrorists for Moldova.
I
It
mean,
was in Moldova. Anyway,
Eastern European terrorists
yeah,
always safer to portray
always.
than
That's
other
right.
terrorists.
And they
Yes.
promised you somebody big was going to die, but it wasn't really anybody big. You just saw all these bodies like Joan Collins, and it was like, oh my gosh, which one is dead? Okay, well,
Yeah, 83 million viewers in 1980. Someone do the math for us on that. It was an astounding
is
number. See,
yeah,
that was, by the way, I think Tyson Paul was one
yeah,
of those few moments where actually most of society was watching the same thing again.
yeah,
Do I think it
yeah.
was as good as Who Shot JR? No, I don't think it was. But nonetheless, we had a moment where we came together. One last thing I must
Yes,
confess.
go ahead. It's all you.
Have I confessed yet that I began Christmas decorating a little bit?
Yeah, you hinted about it on the last show, but
Yeah.
it's really underway now.
It's underway, and I look, I'm sorry to all the purists out there. I just don't have time to do this later. So I did it. I
Yeah.
started it now so we can go in little chunks. And I've gotten a little out of hand over the last couple of years in that I have Christmas bedding for all the rooms. So
Yes.
the kids have on their beds Christmas sheets now, and the babies have Christmas crib sheets with
Mary Catherine, it's not
gingerbread
even
on them.
it's not even we are a week from Thanksgiving and they've got the Christmas sheets on?
It is what it is, Vic.
Oh my
I've
goodness.
given in.
Okay,
I don't have a tree though. I do think that that is too much. People go all out on the tree in
no.
November. I'm like, no. But the trimmings, I have started the trimmings, okay? Our
Yeah,
halls are
no,
going to be a little decked.
I guess
Yeah.
that's okay. You can't if you're doing a real tree, you'd be crazy to put it up now because you don't know how the
Yes.
tree's going to behave, if you will, when it's going to start shedding.
It's true.
But there are folks like, Kate's parents, they love to get that head start on the real tree and then deciding when are they going to get it. And that affects everybody's timetable for travel and visiting and planning. And I'm like, we have to think about this now? But,
we do a real tree, so we can't, just
Yeah,
put it
well,
up
so do we.
willy-nilly. So
No.
so we will get to that later. That's the
Yes, for
final
sure. There'll be
touch on the
plenty of
situation. Okay.
discussions on that.
So anyway, yes, I apologize to the purists. Here I am. I've done it. My Christmas
okay.
bedding. So it's hard to put bedding on these bunk beds, man. You gotta plan ahead for that.
Oh, man, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, bunk beds are not fun for changing. Okay, shall we talk about the news?
Let's do it.
What is going on in the news, Vic? Well, we are rounding out the celebrity cabinet of
Yes.
the celebrity
it hasn't
president
been
of the
this-
United States of
Yeah,
America.
it has. This is like Cannonball Run, but the question is it Cannonball Run 1, which was really good, or 2, which is really bad? That's the question here.
Well, okay, so there are many people in this cabinet who are famous on TV, right? We know
Yes.
that the famous president of the United States of America, or president-elect rather, is into TV.
He loves that. It's a factor.
It's interesting, by the way, that while the power of TV is coming down precipitously,
Yeah.
the power of TV to get you a slot in the cabinet is going up
Right. It's
quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
But so far we've got, like I said, and this is the other thing. I don't like it when people characterize Pete Hegseth as a morning show host, right? He's a veteran. he's been involved in veterans issues for 20-something years.
Right.
Or Sean Duffy as a reality star. It's like, no, he
Right.
was on The Real World when he was 20-something,
Yeah.
and he's done many things since then. Okay, so that's part of it. Let's not relegate them to only that. And I do continue to notice the irony of people who are famous on TV saying it's bad to be only famous on
Oh,
TV.
totally. Yeah.
So there are other things that qualify them. But now we've gotten to Dr. Oz, to CMS,
That's right.
that's Center for Medicare and
Medicaid
Medicaid
services.
Services. Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
that's right.
And get my acronyms correct. I mean, that's like a love of the game slot, by the way. Like who?
I guess. I mean, if you're somebody like Dr. Oz, who's like, what is he, a thoracic surgeon? But
Yeah. So anyway, he's hit Dr. Oz there.
yeah.
And then Linda
To
McMahon.
do what, by the way? What's the hope? Is that he preserves Medicare and Medicaid? Is that the aim? Is he's not going to try to roll back or reform? That'd be crazy.
There's
That's a
certainly
mistake for them, I guess.
There's certainly no directive from Trump or from that campaign to deal with any part of the cost of these concerns.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what he'll do there. I can't remember who it was that said, like, this is a green eye shade job. This is not a forward facing
Okay.
like communications job, which I think is
Yeah.
how Trump picks people in general.
Yeah,
is that
you don't
he's
really
thinking
see
of
them
them
a
as
lot.
a forward facing person. Linda McMahon to education. So Linda McMahon has been the CEO, COO, or whichever one it is, head officer at WWE.
Yes. Her
for
husband,
years.
of course.
Her husband is Vince McMahon. They created a internationally known iconic brand and giant business out of what was a regional sports venue situation. She has led a giant organization in the past. She's dealt with large sums of money. She has made herself a billionaire. She's pro school choice and has spent 1 year on the Connecticut Board of Education before she decided to run for Senate. She did not succeed in running for Senate because she's a Republican in Connecticut.
Yeah, I don't remember the last Republican statewide in the nutmeg state. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think many education bureaucrats are like, oh, there should be an education bureaucrat at the top of the Department of Education, and I would say opposite.
Yeah.
Opposite. There should be an anti-bureaucrat at the top of education, which is, to me, McMahon is a pretty decent avatar of that.
Yeah, you need somebody that's going to, I hate to use that cliche, think outside of the box, but sort of not be from that sort of mold. And again, as you mentioned, she has the background and small business administration under the Trump administration, as a matter of fact. And
by the way, got largely decent reviews for her job at SBA last time around. In fact, increasing the efficiency by which the SBA gave out disaster area loans and help. So she's a person who I think can get her brain around a bureaucracy and make it function better if possible.
Yeah, she's very pro school choice. I mean, the thing is, she has to basically pick up where Betsy DeVos, who is Trump's education secretary, had left off before, Miguel Cardona came in. And honestly, again, we asked this with, Secretary of Defense position. Could she possibly do worse than Miguel Cardona, her fellow Connecticut, by the way? But, so I think that's honestly, that's going to be a very good pick. And I don't think she should have a problem getting confirmed. It's not like they're going to dig up more dirt on her or anything. So.
I would hope that she puts around her some other folks who have been really deeply in school choice policy, and people who bucked the conventional wisdom during COVID. That's one of the things that, like, again, I'm not looking for grenades in public agencies for the sake of grenades, right?
Yeah.
I would like somebody who thinks differently and has some sort of vision and record of having been able to wrangle large organizations. I feel like she has a couple of those.
Mary Katharine, I wonder who you're thinking about when you make that suggestion. I don't know. Just somebody just to blow things up.
Sometimes it is worth considering just a metaphorical grenade, right? But I think to get things to actually change in a bureaucracy, you need somebody who thinks through how to do that. But one of the things that the critics will run up against in coming after her is like, guys, find me an education bureaucrat that didn't say that closing schools for 2 years would be fine and there would be no bad effects.
Right.
If you can find me a left-leaning education bureaucrat who
Yeah.
thought that, like, come on down.
Yeah.
But they are few and far between, and they're not left-leaning anymore because they've been excised from that
Yeah.
movement. If they thought
Yeah. I mean,
that.
you imagine if Kamala won, her nominee would be like Randy Weingarten,
Oh my gosh.
something.
100%.
Anyway. Yeah.
100%. She's already writing policy anyway. Might
Yeah.
as well have her come on down. By the way, for
It's
those
true.
who are concerned about the Department of Education, funding for local schools, like some 8% of it comes from the federal government. A lot of it is
Oh,
federal
right.
loans for higher education that comes through the Department of Education. It has about a $222 billion budget. A
Yeah.
lot of it is administrative. A lot of it is, dare I say, DEI.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nonsense at the Department of Education. We had public schools before 1979 when it came into existence. We will continue to have public schools in the
Yeah.
future. And again, I say the most crippling thing to happen to public schools and trust for them in my entire lifetime was led by Randy Weingarten and the like, shutting down
Yeah.
schools and making sure that they stayed shut down for the sake of teachers, not students. So the damage has
Right.
been done, my
And
friends.
then, yeah, and then gaslighting us afterwards to say that they were always on the side of opening the schools up, and they tried to somehow blame it on the Republicans. So there's that. The other big thing that Linda McMahon, if she's confirmed in the Department of Education in the Trump administration, is going to be tasked with, I think, is investigating a lot of federally funded universities and seeing if they're complying with, protections for students. And specifically, I'm talking about these anti-Semitic attacks that have been happening.
Do you think that
Yeah.
the checkpoints for Jews is going to pass muster at the
Yeah,
Department
no,
of
I
Education?
mean, that's the thing, I think the current solution right now for this problem on some campuses is if you just hide your faith, that would be
Yeah.
really, and then if somebody says, "Are you Jewish?" because that has happened, where people get confronted, students get confronted, "Are you Jewish?" Just lie. That's
Just
just
simple.
lie about it. Yeah,
Simple.
that's it. So I mean, really, that really has to be the question. And when you have these, the Free Beacon has done a lot of work on this, but when we get these, emails obtained, memos between university administration officials, talking about, how to sort of bury this problem and saying that, only Republicans care about it and
Yep.
hopefully hoping it goes away. It should not go away. And in that next administration, they really need to look at, well, if we're giving you hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever it is, are you complying and having to address that? Same thing with Title IX, by the way. So, I mean, she has her work cut out for her.
Well, and I think Betsy DeVos made important changes to Title IX and how that
Yeah.
some of the ways that it had been used to railroad students without due process on campuses. Look, the purse strings are important to these folks, and they think they can do absolutely whatever they want, up to and including violating the law, and never have their sweet, sweet federal money cut off. And a reality check about that is very, very good.
Yep.
It's very, very good.
Good.
Who else do we have? There are whispers now.
Yes.
Look, I would like to say that Jay Bhattacharya's name continues to be floated for head of NIH, but it has not come out officially. And I would
No,
like it to come out
as of this
officially because
taping.
he's just fantastic. So there's that. But it sounds like we're going full force on the COVID regulation skeptics because Marty Makary is being considered for head of
Yeah.
FDA. And that guy, look, anybody who did not engage in the insane, damaging groupthink of the medical and public health community during COVID and was punished for it should be in these jobs. I am happy to have them there.
Right. Anybody who signed the Great Barrington Declaration, move them up to the front
Just
of the
bring
line.
them down.
You know,
Bring them down
and
to Washington.
Yes, defer to them. Seek their counsel. Marty Makary at FDA. That would be great. I mean, he has a terrific book that's out called Blind Spots about basically how did we get here and deferring to authority when we should be questioning, because that's what science does, is question. And suddenly we're not allowed to question, everything from, peanut allergies to quote unquote gender affirming care for kids. I mean, so that would be a breath of fresh air. John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, has been keeping a fairly open mind, by the way, on a lot of these nominees, including Dr. Oz. And so he just, again, there was an old school belief regarding the Senate's role on advise and consent, and that the important thing is, are you qualified? Not do I have to agree with you on everything, and
Right.
you have to be a leftist or whatever. That changed with Robert Bork's confirmation in the 1980s, and we've never recovered from that. But I'll give that's nice to hear. We'll see what happens when these folks are up for confirmation, but hope for the best.
You know that Vinay Prasad is one of my favorite Twitter follows, and he notes about Marty. Over the years, I've published papers that have criticized papers written by Marty, but he still reached out to me, always hears me out, is a fair person to argue with, and is an original thinker. He's not
Yeah.
captured by groupthink, and we agree on a lot. He has the integrity for the job. So that, to me, that's a very high compliment. If someone has professionally disagreed with you to the point of publishing
Yeah.
a peer-reviewed paper, and you can still have a discussion,
Right.
come on down, man. Like,
To be able to respect differences of opinion and but do so civilly. And again, this is a big problem on the left, and they're coming to grips with this now with their whole post-election autopsy, which is talking down to people, or saying that you have to agree with us 100%, otherwise you're a bad. Not just we disagree with you, but you're a bad person.
bad
That's what
person.
Seth Moulton said. Pointed out, and of course he's being attacked for it.
Still.
So again, that's a good sign for these
Yeah,
nominees.
so I'm excited about a couple of those. And what else? What else do we have that's popped up in the last couple of days?
Well, we've been talking, Mary Catherine, about, the free fall at MSNBC and Joe and Mika's pilgrimage. I don't know if that's the right word to use.
I think
Tomorrow
pilgrimage
Lago.
is fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mecca-Lago.
I was going to go more Christian and think about the king on his knees, but anyway, the latest is that Comcast is in fact going to spin off MSNBC along with Oxygen E and the Golf Channel and Sci-Fi. And that's the biggest concern for me is what happens to Ghost Hunters. Because, but other than that, but they are I'll tell you what is interesting. They are keeping Peacock. Obviously, they're keeping NBC, the network, and Bravo. So apparently that
I'm
does
sure
very well
Bravo's
for
a
them.
moneymaker.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they
Yeah.
say. But MSNBC, that it's going to be spun off, and then they're going to have to, do a lot of trimming over there because, again, a lot of these big media personalities there, Nicole Wallace or Joe and Mika, Al Sharpton, Rachel Maddow, or, Chris Hayes,
Right.
they're making 7 to 8 figure salaries and pulling in 6 or 5 figure audiences that
I mean,
just can't be justified.
It
So.
really can't. Eventually, this is going to have to even out, and your audience share is going to have to match your salary at some point. At least Rachel Maddow does some numbers. She's the leader at the network, but she gets paid an insane amount of money, many tens
30
of
million.
millions, right?
She pulled off a 30 million for one show a week.
Wow.
That's
What a
I'd like to have
gig.
her agent.
Yeah, no, respect the game. Respect the game, girl.
Yeah, game respect game. That's right.
I do not have that kind of game, so my game cannot respect that game. But amazing work, Rachel Maddow's agent. So at least she brings in some numbers, but like folks like Nicole Wallace
Yeah.
are getting paid, I'm sure, exorbitant
Oh,
salaries, and those numbers in some cases are like in the tens of thousands.
yeah. On the
Per
weekends,
episode.
it's like sometimes it's a 30,000 something, viewership for a show on a national network. That is insane. So they were trying on Morning Joe the other day to
Right.
figure out how do we get these young people, especially the coveted 18 to 34 demographic, to switch over to watching us for 4 hours or whatever versus, watching something on their phone for 20 seconds, or sound bites,
Yeah.
or come over to a main network like, NBC. If you tried to get a young person to do that, they'd be like, well, what channel is that? What do you mean? I don't, what I mean? Like, would
Yeah,
they
no,
know
they don't
it's
even
on
know where to
channel
find
4 or
it,
whatever?
right.
No,
Well,
no. Everybody's on YouTube.
I think it's unfair to that demographic to suggest they only want to watch 20-second clips.
Yeah.
This sounds like I'm setting up for a joke, and I'm not.
I don't. You're
because
not? Oh.
because you'll see that I think people are very friendly in certain demographics to long form interviews,
Yeah.
as you see with Joe Rogan. Like that's
That's
when
true.
he started his podcast. And look, for me, sometimes I'm like, wow, it's 3 hours. I'm gonna listen to 3 hours,
Yeah.
and sometimes I do, and frequently I don't listen to the whole thing, but I'll dip in. But I do think there's a market for friendly disagreement that is longer form and more
Yeah.
curious and not necessarily politics forward, right? So Joe Rogan is a person who touches on
Right.
politics, but the show is not politics. And I think that's what a low propensity voter is interested in engaging with, right? Like if you touch on politics, they're not mad
Right.
about it, but it's not going to be, a 30-minute monologue from Rachel Maddow about Diebold or whatever. I don't know what the
Yes. Oh, the
I don't know what
machines. Ooh.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
blue anon theory is right now,
The
but yeah.
latest one. Yeah.
Oh,
What happened to all those missing voters?
oh,
No,
speaking of which, by the
yeah.
way, did you see that there was a Bucks County commissioners meeting that
Okay.
featured the woman who blatantly on tape said we got to
Oh, right.
disregard these Supreme Court of Pennsylvania
Miss
rulings
Ellis Marsalia. Yes.
in order to count more illegal ballots for Bob Casey. She said this on tape yesterday at the meeting where she was absolutely bombarded with public comment about this
Good.
attempt. She said, she apologized and she said her passion got away from her. Her passion. She has as I joked, like she has a passion for
Yes.
like crochet and stealing Senate elections. That's
Right. I know. I have a passion for defying the law and going after authoritarians by making sure I can do whatever I want because
yes.
I'm
No, you
not
have
the
to stop the
authoritarian.
authoritarians by being
The
authoritarian. That's how
authoritarians,
that works,
they're
Vic.
doing it again. Okay.
Oh my goodness! But
I just wanted to
she
say,
was
yeah,
reprimanded at that meeting, and there should
good.
be consequences for her.
Well,
There
yeah,
should be legal
yeah.
consequences for her, probably. And Scott Pressler, who was the guy who famously changed all those registrations in Pennsylvania and in Bucks County in particular, made it a red county instead of a blue county. He was at that meeting and said, like, "We're coming for your seat. Like, you're not
Yeah.
sticking around."
Well, I hope so. I hope so because I mean, at which point again, we said this on the last show. I mean, why does Miss Ellis Marsalia just continue to flout and say I'm just not going to listen to the court and we're just going to do it our way and that's it. I mean, how badly do they want it? So, and I want to get into the recount in a second, but before I
Yeah.
forget, I did want to say the YouTube phenomenon thing has really taken off, and the Wall Street Journal has been talking about where how people are getting their news from news influencers now. More people are watching YouTube than on almost any of these platforms, including podcasts, Mary Catherine. And so most people are now something that you wouldn't have believed when podcasts started, which is that people would want to watch. Well, I mean, not every show, but like if there's an actual video of it, they like to watch a show, even if it's like think about Joe Rogan for that matter, with Trump, or our show for that matter.
Yes.
So yes. So when you talk about sort of the outsized, this contrast, by the way, between people who make 7-8 figures and they're only pulling in a small crowd, right, a small audience, I feel like we're the opposite of that.
Yes.
We pull in a lot of people and we need to up our salaries. That's
You
what
know
I'm
what?
trying. That's
You know
what
what they
I'm
call
trying
that? A bargain, Vic. We are a bargain.
to say. Yeah, twice a week. You should be lucky it's twice a week. Okay. Did you want to talk about the election update? Is what I thought we wanted to talk about regarding Pennsylvania.
Well, I think I covered most of what's interesting about that, which is
Yes.
that lady getting her butt handed to her in a public
Yes.
meeting. But I think in the recount, Casey's picking up, teens of
It is.
of votes.
Yes.
Literally
Underway.
dozens of votes are being changed in this recount, which, look, again, the recount is triggered automatically if you hit a certain threshold. I understand
Right.
that. I also think if you can look at the map and say, I'm not going to make this up, it might be the better part of valor to just be like, I don't need to exhaust this $2 million option for myself at the taxpayer's expense.
Yeah, well, that's not happening. He's decided at this point in time he's going all in. And as of, I believe it was the end of Tuesday or Wednesday, 4 counties in Pennsylvania had completed their recount, and it did net Bob Casey 4 votes.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
McCormick's lead is about 17,000. He's going to need more than a handful here and a handful there. So we'll see. The last time a recount actually worked in favor of of a challenger was Al Franken. And it was like
interesting. I forgot about that.
He was down by a little over 200 votes, and they managed to flip it and defeat Norm Coleman. So Norm Coleman was ahead before the recount, And Coleman, obviously, I don't, I don't blame him. I'm sure he feels that, something happened there. And California, by the way, they have about 492,000 votes yet to count.
It's so embarrassing.
It's a big state. It's, they don't have the
It's
technology
what are they
that Florida
doing?
has. Yeah.
Well, as you know, I guess it's because all the tech companies moved from California to Texas. So how could they possibly have the
Yeah.
technology to do?
Yeah, that's right. They don't even know how to, they just know how to turn the computer on now. Everybody who
Elon
actually
left
does the
and they're
work is
like, what do we
left.
do? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's embarrassing and it's bad for democracy. And I don't understand, by the way. So someone tweeted this recently, so I'm cribbing this from someone, but I do think, you'll hear talk about Gavin Newsom being the future of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And I just think until you fix California, which is
Right.
the symbol of liberalism in this country and liberal policy, you can't pitch Gavin Newsom as the future.
Yeah.
Partly what people reacted to in Chicago and New York, this is why you see the urban numbers turning right for Trump. People
Right.
are reacting to bad governance.
Right.
And California is the symbol of that. By the way, did you see that it was Andrew Gruel, who is a restaurateur in California,
Okay.
and is
Oh,
sticking
right.
it out,
Chef.
sticking it out there. And he noticed that his payroll taxes went up on the payroll that he's paying his folks in California. And he looked into this and was confused and found out that California had defaulted on a federal government loan for its unemployment insurance.
Oh,
And
boy.
guess who's on the hook for that?
Yeah.
California businesses. So
Yeah.
they jack up the payroll tax when they can't make their loan payments to the federal government. Like, this is
Problem
the
solved.
amount of dysfunction in that state is wild. And you have so many natural resources and so much wonder out there to sell. And
You were
people are
just there. The
still
weather's
like,
great. Yeah.
we gotta go, man. And
Yeah,
it's stuff like that. That's why.
That's how bad. It's got the largest homeless population, and they need to do something about that. And the other thing is, you are sort of noticing, if you looked at the electoral map of California and how much redder it has become. I know, again, they're still counting the votes over there, but clearly there was a shift from 2020, certainly in 2016 to 2024 in favor of Republicans, even though some Republican congressmen have lost there. But in addition to that, you have a number of these special elections, including for George Gascon, right, who is the prosecutor who got kicked out. They had one, obviously, in San Francisco a year or two ago, and that one also ended up kicking out Chesa Boudin.
Oh, yeah.
And so people are like saying they've had enough, and these various propositions that would have made things, where they want to make the crime of shoplifting a crime again.
Mhm.
And then this last one that got defeated was a proposition for raising minimum wage.
That one is
Uh,
astounding to me.
Yeah.
It lost close. It was like 51-49. But when a minimum wage hike
Right.
is
18 to
rejected
$18.
was rejected by the people of California,
Yeah.
we are in a new era of some kind.
Yeah. And the problem is, Gavin Newsom has presided over all of this. And so he
Yes.
can't come in as an outsider saying that he's going to ride the waves of, we need to do things better and we're going to push back. And we got too carried away.
You froze on
No,
me.
because he was there from the beginning. He survived a recall and took that. Somehow surviving a recall means mandate, and then it's wheels off. So I don't know what he has his work cut out for him if he's thinking about 2028.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure who they have for that, although I think it's like just a little premature to jump into it. Can I do You Love to Hear It real
Please.
quick? From HBO. HBO has a new series coming out, Harry Potter-based series.
Oh,
J.K. Rowling is working on that series. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, has been very outspoken on gender issues, trans issues. She's been fantastic and brave in ways that
very.
people who are more cancelable than she is
oh,
could not be at times. And they have not succeeded in canceling her because the original Harry Potter series is just really freaking good.
Yeah.
And the products that come from it are very popular, and they continue to be popular, and they succeed partly because she's involved and was the originator of this
genesis of it.
beloved story. So there's a new series out, and Variety notes that back when they were doing the last release of like the Fantastic Beasts movies,
Oh, yeah.
in 2020, 2021, that Warner Brothers released a carefully worded statement at that time that a diverse and inclusive culture has never been more important to our company and to our audiences around the world, which didn't like really mention the issue, but were kind of
dancing around it.
Dancing around it.
Yeah.
Now, HBO stands up for Rowling and says, J.K. Rowling has a right to express her personal views. We will remain focused on the development of the new series, which will only benefit from her involvement. That is as close as a corporation is going to get to saying F off to activists on this issue. And it is a welcome change.
They're reading the room.
They are reading
like,
the
wait
room.
a minute, this election was not, so lopsided, in favor of, Democrats and progressives the way the media made you think it was going to be, and that the people who oppose all these things or believe all these things are crazy, a small crazy minority and whatever. No,
So
they saw it and they're like, okay, I think the mood of the nation is here. This is, fine. This is what corporations do. And they put their finger in the wind and then they're like, oh, I see which way it's blowing in. Okay, now, but fine. At least they're doing that,
Well, and the thing is that, like you said, that the wind was fake, right? The wind was just a bunch of loud folks making way more noise than normal people. HBO chief Casey Bloys told reporters at a press event on November 12th that Rowling was, quote, very, very involved in the process, selecting the writer and the director, and her, this is Variety's term, anti-trans statements, quote, haven't affected the casting or hiring of writers or production staff for the show. Good. We haven't talked about this, by the way, and I'm like maybe a little loath to, but should we touch on the bathroom controversy?
You mean on Capitol Hill?
In the incoming Congress?
Yes, of course. You mean the men's room and the ladies' room, which was the way it's been since the beginning of time. Yes, okay.
So there is an openly transgender member of Congress coming in from the state of Delaware, I believe.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And this person, formerly man, being a woman, living as a woman now, Nancy Mace, who is a South Carolina representative who can be, shall we say, theatrical.
Outspoken.
And has engaged in some shenanigans that get a lot of attention, such as, didn't she wear the Hester Prynne dress?
Did she do the Hester Prynne?
She wore
Scarlet Letter?
I can't even remember what it was for
maybe.
now. At any rate, so she's proposed a law basically saying that the women's room at the Capitol needs to be for women and setting rules about this. Mike Johnson is the speaker who sets the rules for the House and has said indeed that men will not be allowed in the women's room. Okay, so one, I don't think that practically speaking, this is a huge issue on the Hill because they all have personal bathrooms in their
they have in their own offices, right? So this is just the public spaces.
And we can play a clip of AOC or Hakeem Jeffries. They're all very much. This is definitely a culture war bait thrown, and then culture war folks taking it.
Yeah, right.
So here they are flipping out.
It's disgusting. And everybody, no matter how you feel on this issue, should reject it completely. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds. And everybody should reject it. It's gross. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, McBride, who is the trans congressperson, has issued a statement that's actually very classy and is like, I'm not here to fight about. I actually think this is a sign of the times. It's like, I'm not here to fight about bathrooms. I'll respect the rules that Speaker Johnson puts forward. End of story. I'm here to make Delawareans' lives better. And I think that in and itself is a response to the culture, which is like,
shift.
If I stay focused on their issues instead of my identity, that is what will win me this seat in the future, right?
Well, considering that perhaps the most effective ad of the 2024 race was that Kamala Harris represents they, them, and Donald Trump represents you. Yeah, it's best probably not to dwell on that. I think since probably a majority of Americans generally feel that way, that it's getting out of control with, pronoun preferences. And again, even AOC, I believe, has removed hers, last I heard. So, I mean, good. And the other thing was, this was just unspoken because it has always been the case that men use the men's room and women use the ladies' room. It was just not made official into a law until now under Speaker Mike Johnson, but
Well,
it's always been understood. So I mean,
right,
this is not some
here's the thing
crazy
is
idea.
right, and here's the thing is when a novel issue comes before the
Yeah,
Congress and that is then questioned, you actually do have to have a discussion about how you deal with that. It should not be the duty of women to just go, that's
yeah,
fine, and we'll not open our mouths about it. I don't
right.
think that's that people are not okay with that anymore.
Yeah,
In fact, what we've done is not had a conversation because we've been bullied into not having a conversation for years.
yeah,
And often what happens is it comes at the expense of women's spaces, of women's spas,
yeah,
of women's dressing rooms, right?
yeah.
Now,
So
there's
biological men could go anywhere they want, is what
right. And
that's the, yeah,
there are some people I respect who are like, this is not the fight to pick. It looks mean-spirited. Like the bathrooms with stalls shouldn't be an issue. I think this would be fine. Okay, I'm willing to listen to a certain degree. But here's the problem. As I noted, women feel like they have gotten rolled on this
yeah,
for many years. And they feel like it's nonsense when you say it stops at the bathroom or it stops at what it doesn't. If
yeah,
the logic is trans women are women, why does it stop at the dressing room or at the bathroom and doesn't go to the dressing room? There's no reason that a woman can't be in the
yeah.
women's dressing room as well, right? And
That's
I
right.
think women have been very quiet and very deferential about this for a long time. And now there is a cultural shift that allows them to be like, hold on just a second, buddy.
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable with
that's right.
this. And like, we may be living in a society, as many corporations have dealt with it this way, where you just like have a gender neutral bathroom and there's just a different setup. And I'm happy
Right.
to respect that. But people are allowed to have concerns about this now.
You know what? I'm actually against those gender neutral bathrooms because it usually translates into long lines.
Yeah.
The men. I've always enjoyed having the edge of a men's room versus ladies' room. There's never a line. If there's a line in the men's room, that's crazy. And it's usually if there's a big game going on. But usually we're in and out. We got the
I
urinal
know.
stalls. It's very easy. And then the women always have this long line. And you know what? Now
It's
I
a
have
real
to wait
thing.
like everybody else. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Anyway, so that seems like
Okay.
sort of settled for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, this I resent the idea that it's only a culture war when people not of the left defend themselves. Like
Yeah.
there
That's
was
right.
aggression to which people are responding. We are in a new era where we're having to discuss new things. And this is part of that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Enough.
that
There's just enough is enough.
there's a
That's it.
there's a truce at the moment, and these are the rules. And McBride says they, she will respect those. So there we
Good.
go. And again,
Okay.
I think that statement released is like a symbol of, okay, if you're addressing people's real issues, you can stay in Congress. If you're doing identity politics, you're probably not going to stay in politics. You're not
No.
going to stay
And
in Congress.
what's funny is I actually see then people saying, what identity politics? They didn't talk about any of this stuff. And it's only the right that's been talking about this in the race. Jen Psaki talks about these manufactured controversies.
Yes,
And in
it's
fact,
only
they're
us that
forgetting,
care about this. Yeah.
yeah. And it's been like years. And suddenly when they realized that they became very hush about it, during the,
Yeah.
during this campaign season. But don't try to tell me that, they've never brought any of this up before.
No.
No, that's it. Mary Catherine,
Um,
you have a heart out.
I do. I have to head out, but I did want to say
Yeah.
that to end on a sad note, but
Oh, right.
that the alleged murderer of Laken Riley in Georgia, the 22-year-old nursing student who lost
Mhm.
her life, was murdered
That's
on a
right.
jogging trail near the University of Georgia, is now the convicted murderer. Jose
Yes, he is.
Ibarra, who came to the country illegally, was picked up in New York on criminal charges
Mhm.
twice, I believe, and then ended up in Georgia, in Athens, Georgia, which is a sanctuary city. He did it, and
Yeah.
she was put in a position that she should never have been put in because this person shouldn't have been in the country to begin with, and then should have been sent home several times over before he got to that jogging trail. And the testimony in the trial was very jarring, The fight for her life was very long, which is horrifying to think about.
Yeah,
Her
the
family has
body
to
the body cam stuff was very tough.
her family has to live with this. Her friends have to live with this and without Laken forever.
Yeah.
And this is what makes people angry, is when you tell them that this is a moral panic and they shouldn't be worried about it. No,
Right.
they should be worried about it. This was a policy run by this administration that allowed this kind of lawlessness to escalate to this
Yeah.
point. And it's happened not just
Yeah.
with Laken Riley, but with many people. And it's so, so awful. And I'm so glad that he has at least met with justice. And hopefully that's some comfort.
That's right. The impact statements were really brutal. I mean, they're from her mother, her father, her sister. And, you know, and again, like you mentioned, this guy's with Tren de Aragua. He was flown from sanctuary to sanctuary. He was flown. This is props to the New York Post, I think, who was the first to break the story. But he flew on taxpayer dime,
Of course he
right?
did.
From New York to Georgia.
Tell me, Vic, has the American government ever flown you across the country?
No, that would be nice. That would be nice.
It's never happened to me either.
But they do it for them. And then they tell you, well, statistically, you know, only a small percentage versus, you know, regular Americans who do many worse crimes. He should not have been here on the first place. And there are, as you know, we talk about this, thousands and thousands of convicted murderers, according to, you know, the Border Patrol estimates themselves in this country already, and not to mention hundreds on the terror watch list who have gotten away. That would not have been the case if Remain in Mexico wasn't still in place. Obviously, if Biden didn't reverse all of these, you know, executive orders on day one under Trump, this is on there. This is their lasting legacy. And every time, as you mentioned, all these governors and mayors being so brave to say, we're not going to cooperate with ICE. Well, here you go.
No, you're literally pro-crime.
Yeah.
If someone is committing crimes in your community and you are deciding to keep them there, when ICE is offering to come get them for you, like ICE will do the work. You don't have to do the work. And that to me is just appalling. And it's appalling to many citizens. By the way, the mayor of Denver just joined in and saying like, oh, we shall resist every effort. And it's like, well, these are the fruits of you resisting every effort.
So
and
you're fine with this.
And
Great.
it is deeply
Because I don't
unfair
think
to the
people are.
citizens of your city.
Yeah.
So
is.
I hate to
Right.
end on that sad note, but I wanted to make note of it.
we can end on a somewhat lighter note, which is a quick call out. Listener Chris Zach, he had this to say about us on X, which is this, Mary Katharine, quote, "It's a regular occurrence on Wednesdays and Fridays for me to be driving to work and have the sudden realization that it's a getting hammered day. Always a great way to start off my work day." Well, thank you. That's the and I was going to say that's the thing, really. You don't want to be getting hammered every day. Like twice a week.
Yeah.
It's fine. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can hear my housekeeping come in my door at the end of this episode. I was trying to just let it go. You can watch us on YouTube at Getting Hammered Podcast or on Instagram at Getting Hammered Podcast, and you should. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly at least twice a week. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.